Hey everybody, can you hear me? Can you see me? Everything working okay tonight? If you can see me and hear me and all that stuff, give me a message. Let me know everything's working. Well, I guess no one's going to chime in, so I guess I will just assume that that everything's working all right. All right, so welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue where we left off last week. We started working with diatonic scales, and we've done the first two. We've done the Ionian shape and the Dorian shape, and we went over some different exercises and different stuff. Sounding good. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so Mr. Moonshine, like your name. Cool, thank you. So yeah, so we're going to move on with that, and we're going to start with the third position. Well, actually, before we do that, there's one thing that I know we're talking about stuff with diatonic scales, but this is something that I don't think that I talked about last week that's kind of important and useful. You can use that Dorian shape, the second position shape, in lieu of the pentatonic scale or with the pentatonic scale. So like in this case here, we were doing it starting on A. But here's the thing where it's going to be a little bit weird. So if we were playing a song, if you were going to solo over a song that was in the key of G major, you could use the G Ionian shape, and you could use the Dorian shape starting on A. And you could also use E minor pentatonic. Oh, you are welcome. I am going to probably totally slaughter your name, Adish. Not sure how you pronounce it, but thank you. Yeah, so the relative minor to G major is E minor. But if you were playing an E minor and you were using the pentatonic scale, you could actually use the Dorian shape there because it shares a lot of the same notes. So let's look at it here in A. If we look at the Dorian shape, we've got A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and then back to A because there's 7 notes. But the pentatonic scale just has 5 notes. But the 5 notes that are in it are shared from that scale. So it's A, C, D, E, G, and then back to A. So we're losing the B and the F sharp. But anyway, that's just something you can do. So if you use the Dorian shape, you're adding in those extra notes. A lot of blues players will do that. They'll incorporate Dorian into their pentatonic stuff. Okay, so the other thing, or the new pattern that I wanted to go over tonight is the third position, and this would be the Phrygian shape. So again, staying in G major, like we were, Ionian starts on G, and then Dorian starts on A. So now Phrygian is going to start on B. So just the same way that we chained them together. So like there's the first 3 notes of Ionian. So notes 2 and 3 are notes 1 and 2 of Dorian. So by the same principle, notes 2 and 3 of Dorian are notes 1 and 2 of Phrygian. So Phrygian is going to start there on B, and it's a half step and a whole step. So again, even though we're playing a different pattern and we're playing in a completely different place on the neck, we're still playing the same 7 notes that are in the key of G major. So G major consists of G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then back to G. So we're just starting on B instead of starting on G, but it's still the same 7 notes. So we've got B here. So let's just go over the pattern. And for whatever reason, this was the pattern that I had the most difficult time memorizing. I don't know what it was, but I started to think I was never going to memorize it. I learned all the other patterns, but this one just really hung me up. And I never really used it a whole lot, even after I learned it, because I practiced so much with the other shapes. I just didn't really incorporate it until probably the last 10 years. Anyway, so starting on the low E, we have a half step and then a whole step. And then moving to the A string, we have a whole step and a half step. D string, whole step and a half step. Now we go to the G string, 2 whole steps. And now we're going to go to the B string, so we have to shift up, half step this time. 2 whole steps. And then to the high E, 2 whole steps. So in this case here, we're 7, 8, 10, 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 11, 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12. Now, that's only if you're playing it in that key. But again, these are movable shapes, so if we did it starting here on A, it would still be the same pattern, obviously just different frets and different notes. So just like with the other ones, with this shape, the first thing you really want to do is just memorize the pattern. So you can play it ascending and descending. Alternate picking. And then after you have it memorized, then we want to do the same kind of exercises that we did before. So the now, if you don't know that sequence, I went over it last week. So if you didn't see last week's live stream, just go onto the channel and you can watch the rerun of it. And I go over all of these exercises. Oh my gosh. I was saying about how hard time memorizing the pattern. Apparently I still don't know that. Yeah, so do all of those different exercises, groups of 6, groups of 4, groups of 5, just like we did with the first 2 patterns. Now, what we want to do is we want to hook them together like we did. I showed you how to the sequence where you chain the Ionian and Dorian together. So now we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to do all 3 patterns. So again, if we're staying in G, we'll start with Ionian, starting on G. We'll ascend that all the way to the top. And again, notes 2 and 3 are notes 1 and 2 of the next pattern. So now we're going to shift up and descend the second pattern, Dorian. Now we're going to shift up. So again, notes 2 and 3 are notes 1 and 2, and we're going to ascend Phrygian. So there we went from the 3rd to the 12th fret in staying in the one key, playing the same 7 notes over and over and over again. But now we've covered a bigger area of the fretboard. It's all different shapes. As you do those exercises, and then you start, like learning, licks and different things that are based out of these patterns, you'll kind of grow to like particular patterns more than others. It might be that, that maybe you really like Phrygian, like Marty Friedman, that guy got big, crazy, bushy hair, used to play for Megadeth. He really likes the Phrygian scale, and then he did a lot of stuff with harmonic minor and stuff like that too. But the Phrygian scale almost has kind of a Middle Eastern, harmonic minor kind of sound to it anyway. Yeah, so practice, go ascend Ionian, shift up, descend Dorian, shift up, ascend Phrygian. Now, you don't want to just do it that way because then all you're doing is you're practicing Ionian only ascending, and then Dorian only descending. You want to make sure you can go both, ascend and descend each pattern. So then when you get to the top, you can just reverse it. So we'll start with Phrygian, descending. Now we shift down and ascend Dorian. Shift down, descend Ionian. So that right there, that's a really great exercise, again, with the alternate picking. Now, one other thing too, we talked before about when I play, I use my first, second, and fourth, but some people will do it between their first, third, and fourth. Again, that's totally fine. So it's the same thing here. I'm going first finger, second finger, fourth, first, third, fourth, first, and then when I get here, instead of going first, third, fourth like that, I use my first, second, and fourth finger. It's just more comfortable for me. Now, once I'm up this high where the frets are close together, that's not uncomfortable for me to do that. But one thing that's really important, and I've probably already said this a gajillion times, and I will say it, I'll probably say it a gajillion more. Consistency is really, really important. You don't want to have it that when you're playing, if we just took one shape and we just took Ionian, it's like, because I've had students do this before where they'll ascend it like this, and then when they descend it, they change which fingers they're using. Just, if you have not come to the decision yet of which way is right for you, just practice, both ways. One way should feel considerably easier than the other, and then just go with the easier way. That being said, though, do use your pinky. Don't just not use your pinky because, I've heard, my pinky's too short, my pinky's is too weak. It's whatever. I've heard every different kind of excuse and stuff for not using your pinky. Anyway, it's I know it's hard to use it at first, but it's really, really important. You'll be a much, much better player. It makes everything easier. It's like you could ride your bike, only pedal with one leg, but why? Let's see. Can you give an idea of a melodic exercise patterns in the modes? Yeah, that's what I was saying. That stuff in the last, if you look at last week's live stream, I was talking about how just playing a scale up and down isn't very musical sounding. It doesn't, if you're in key, if someone's playing G, C, and D, and you're playing that over it, it's going to sound good no matter what. The notes are going to be in key, but it may not necessarily sound musical. So you really want to strive to try to get melody in your, when you're playing. And really easy ways you can do that is just don't play everything the same duration. Don't just play everything as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or 1 E and a 2 E and mix it up. So you're like mix up the timing and duration of the notes, and then don't just play notes constantly sequentially up and down. Now, if you've got something where you got some kind of a fast ascending or descending run, that's one thing. But it just doesn't really sound musical to just go, up and down, back and forth all the time. So you can do stuff by skipping notes. All that was just from Ionian and Dorian. So yeah, go back and watch that, and I go through a whole bunch of different exercises and stuff. There are other scales other than pentatonic. Yeah, yes, absolutely there is. I went through. I thought that when I was young, when I first started playing, I thought that everything you ever heard was based out of the pentatonic scale, and I think that happens a lot because that's generally the first scale that people learn because it's easy. But yes, there are other scales. That's what we're going over here. There are 7 of the major modes that we're going to go over, and we've went over 3 of them. And I'll be back next week, and we'll continue with this. Okay, so the other main kind of exercise that I wanted to hit on in this, aside from the ascending, shifting up, descending, ascending, shifting up, is the one we did where you play just the first 6 notes, and then you shift up and you play 6 notes. Now we're going to add in the third one. So all of this is just going to be on, right now we're just on the E and the A string. Now we're going to shift back down and start on the A string, do the A and D string, 6 notes. Now shift back, do the same thing with D and G. Shift back, do the same thing with G and B. Whoops. Now we're going to shift down, do it with B and D, or excuse me, B and E. And then you want to do it, descending as well. Whoops. Oh my gosh. Whoops. Wow, I need some practice on the descending part of that for sure. But anyway, by doing that, you it will ensure that you know the pattern inside and out. You want to know them. You don't want to just know them as, having to always start at the low note or the high note and go through. You want to be able to do it anywhere. So by doing that, you could have it so when you're playing that you could start, there and know where that you are there. That you're either on the third note of Ionian or the second note of Dorian, whichever way is easier for you to be able to picture it. You want to just be able to visualize where they are, and then just have it so instead of playing vertically across the fretboard, we're trying to get it so we're going more horizontally across the fretboard. Because the more you can play that way, horizontally, then you can do more things, with slides and and stuff with tapping. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do that it's just, I don't think one's better than the other. I think it's important to know both. That's my opinion on it. I started off with, doing everything in the box shape too. And I played that way for a very long time and it, was fine with it. And then, I don't remember exactly how I started going across, more horizontally, but I did. And I think it's, it's a really good thing to do. Okay. So, does anybody else have any questions or anything before we move on? All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, then we can move along. Okay. So before we get to, I don't want to just here's a pattern, here's a pattern, here's a pattern. This is how they hook together. We kind of want to look at how you can utilize these and keep kind of going over about what the difference is between playing the Dorian mode and playing the second position of Ionian, which happens to be the same pattern. So we kind of touched on this last time. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, so if you are playing in the key, just in any key, so we'll just use the key of G major again, because it's just kind of a convenient place. So if we were doing a 1-4-5 chord for, you were playing over someone playing a 1-4-5 in G, it would be G, C, and D. So it would be, it's tonal center, it's kind of revolving around that G. So if we use the G Ionian scale, we're playing all the notes that are in the key, playing all the notes that are in those chords, but we're also keeping our tonal center of what we're doing revolving around G. Now, we can still use the A Dorian pattern over this because technically you're not playing A Dorian at this point. You're just playing the second position of Ionian. It just happens, it's the same shape. You won't call it Dorian until it's the first shape. So after we get through all of them, we'll come back to that and it'll kind of make more sense. But we can do it a shortened version of it right now. So if we're in the key of G major, we're in the G Ionian mode. So there's 7 positions. Each position starts on a note of the scale. So you have G starting on the G Ionian starting on G, and then the second position would start on A, which is the Dorian shape, but we're not going to call it Dorian. We're going to call it the second position of Ionian. And then the Phrygian shape, we would call the third position of Ionian. Now, if we were playing in the Dorian mode, then Dorian is 1, and now Phrygian is the second position, and then the next one, which is Lydian, would be the third. I'll continue to go over because I know that this is a subject that causes a lot of confusion. So let's basically look what the difference is. If we had a chord progression, let's say we were going A minor, D, G, so A minor to E minor, that's good, A minor, C, A minor, D, G, E minor. Now, all of those chords are in the key of G major. Remember, we did the chord scale. So, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp, diminished, and back to G, or 7th chords. I'm not going to go all over it again. I think that was in the week before last that we went over the chord scale. Or possibly last week. I think it was the week before. But anyway, it was one of the two. So these chords, we know that A minor and D major, G major, and E minor, all of those chords are still in the key of G major. But now our tonal center is not G anymore. Now it's A minor. So that means that we are, our tonal center is A. So they're like, okay, well, we're playing all of the notes that are in the key of G major, but our tonic is A. That's where modal playing comes in. So now we're going to play A Dorian over this, and it's the same notes that are in G major, but instead of starting on G and ending on F sharp, now we're starting on A and ending on G. Same 7 notes though, still got 1 sharp, F sharp. So if we play this over the top of those chords, we're going to be focused around, are centered around the A note. Now we can still play the B Phrygian shape. We can still play the G Ionian shape. It's just that they are, we wouldn't call it Ionian or Phrygian or whatever. Now, if it, for the ease of understanding and communicating, I always refer to it that way. If I know that I'm in the key of G, I know that I'm in the Ionian mode, and I say about playing Phrygian, I don't call it the third position. I know what that means. You want to know that that's what it is. But I've just found that with a lot of other musicians that I'll talk to that a lot of times it's just easier to understand if you just say what it is, just call it what it is. You just want to make sure you understand that if I'm playing, if we've got the G, C, and D 1, 4, 5, and I'm playing a Dorian, I'm not in the Dorian mode, and that's where a lot of people they get confused with it and actually think that. I've talked to people before that actually think that that's a thing, that's how it works, and it doesn't work that way. So you want to make sure you know that chord scale that we went over. So major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and then the major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and then back to G. Like I said, I went over that a couple of weeks ago. If you memorize that, and then you can just look at the chords wherever you're at. So we could take that A minor, D, G, and E minor. So A minor is actually the 2, but since we're having it be the center, it's now 1. So our 1 chord is A minor, or A minor 7. Our 4 chord is D dominant 7 or D major. And so that's 1, 4. And then G is now our 7. So it's 1, 4, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 4, 7, 5 would be, and that sounds like a really weird progression, but in the Dorian mode, it's not, because those chords just line up and work that way. I hope I'm explaining this well. This is, like I said, this is a subject that lots of confusion on and stuff, and I've been teaching this for a very, very long time. And some people just really get it right away, and other people it just doesn't really seem to work. So it's made me kind of a little bit self-conscious if maybe I'm not explaining it really good. Let's see. I appreciate explanations on this topic. I've been trying to better understand this stuff for a while. Oh, well, you're welcome, Jeremy. I wish that there had been something, like YouTube or just the internet, like when I was young and learning how to play, it would have been extremely useful. I mean, I could go get, Guitar Magazine, and it would have, some tabs in there for songs, and then read different columns and stuff like that, and then buy books, but there just really wasn't the information out there as ready available as it is now. So it's really awesome. It's, awesome time to be learning the guitar, just not a great time to be trying to be making a living playing the guitar. But that's a whole other stuff. All right. So does anybody have any questions or anything on what I just talked about? Because like I said, this is a confusing thing. So if you don't understand something, now is the time to ask, because I would love nothing more than when everybody walks away from this today having a better understanding about how this stuff works. Nobody's got any questions or anything? Come on, don't be shy. That's what I'm here for. We still got to play Stump the Dummy anyway. So if you don't have any questions about this particular subject or whatever, if you have any other, guitar questions or whatever, get them ready and stuff so we can play Stump the Dummy and see if you can stump me the question that I can't answer. moving along then, if we look at the Phrygian shape, again, we got the same kind of a idea that now it would be around B. So if we would look at the chords again from the chord scale, they're based off these notes and come up with a chord progression that would revolve around B minor or B minor 7. Now, another thing that you can do with this, and this is something that I do with Phrygian. It's honestly, it's about the only thing I really do with Phrygian, is that I'm not necessarily, I'm not really interested in like soloing over some weird chord progression that's out of that. But if you take, if you take a power chord, just the regular old power chord that see, I've had several people tell me to learn the caged method, and it's easier to learn this stuff. Honestly, I am not sure if that's really helping. Well, I'm kind of really torn on the whole cage system thing. I mean, it's good. It's got good information and everything, but I've encountered a lot of people that they found it really confusing. I did it first. I was like, what? And then after I understood it, I can see, I can see how it would be useful and stuff, but I don't teach it. It's just never, it just didn't really go with me. I've just found other ways to work with it and stuff. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. Like I said, it's not a bad thing. There isn't any, anything wrong with it. It's just different. Yeah. So a power chord, if the chord, like this one could be major or major 7, it doesn't matter. You can still do a power chord because a power chord is just the first and the fifth note. So it doesn't have the notes that that make it be, that define it to be major or minor or a 7th chord. It's just 1 and 5. So it's a both intervals are perfects. When we went through the music theory thing 3-4 weeks ago or whatever, we learned that it's the 5th degree of the scale is what they call a perfect. I'm not going to go through all that again now. Go back and I think I did it in over 2 weeks, and I think it just says boring music theory that you should know or you must know, something like that. And that was just kind of a joke because I hear people all the time, oh, music theory is boring. I don't think it's boring at all. It's like math. It can get like way crazy where you don't necessarily need all this stuff, but basic music theory is to me is like really important, fundamental of playing. But anyway, if you're soloing over something that's made up of power chords, that's like an E minor, you can play E Phrygian over it, and it's not going to work 100% of the time over everything, but a lot of it, it'll really sound good. There's lots of cool riffs that you can make out of just the intervals from that. So like, that Judas Priest Painkiller, it's right out of A Phrygian. There's lots of riffs that are completely, there's riffs that you'll hear that once you know the mode, you'll be able to go, oh my gosh, that's based out of this. One of the things we'll actually be doing once we get further through this is a really famous melody, and I like to use this because everybody's heard it. It's the theme to the Simpsons TV show, is in Lydian. So what we'll do is we'll learn it in Lydian, and then we'll learn it in the other modes so you can hear the difference. And I think it's a really good way to be able to recognize when you're playing when you're playing, a scale, it's really good to be able to recognize by ear what scale it is that is being played. Like when you're listening to it, like music or whatever. That actually reminds me of something that I forgot to talk about. So when you practice these scales, there's a thing that I really recommend that you practice doing. It is one of the most annoying things you will ever do for practice. But if you put on a tone that's just like a constant tone, like you can get there's like little apps, like if you've got a tuner app on your phone, it probably has one where it'll just play a pitch. So like this metronome here just plays this. It's just A, and that's all it'll do. But you put it on, you put on a pitch like that, and now you just practice the scale. Now I'm doing Ionian starting on A because that's an A. So listen to the sound of the notes. Now if I play Dorian also starting on A. Now if I play Phrygian, again starting on A. It makes it so you can hear each one of the scales, and you can really hear what it sounds like, and it'll train your ear to recognize it. But playing over that constant like that is annoying. Looks like I've cut out. It says something wrong with the internet connection. Can you still hear me and see me? Please let me know, because I just got am I still here? Anybody? Okay, the little arrow went away. Can you hear me? Can you still see me? Getting errors that there's something wrong with. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jeremy. Yeah, so it's like really irritating, and I haven't bothered to like find tones that. Okay, cool. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, because I've had a couple of times now, it's just shut off halfway through the live stream. I'm sorry. If you go to that link there, you can actually get on the mailing list that I'm working for, and get lots of stuff. They actually have like an ebook that I think that if you sign up you can get for free, and different stuff. Right now they've got one of their courses that they're giving away for free. But if you get on the mail list, then you can see all that stuff. They usually have some kind of something or another that they give away all the time. All right. So does anybody have? Whoa. I guess nobody. Yeah, I think I don't even know if anyone can even hear me anymore. I think the internet may have crapped out. But anyway, kind of reached the end here. So does anybody have any questions, like about anything? Like so let's play Stump the Dummy. Have any questions? All right. Well, if nobody has any questions or anything, then I think I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I'd like to thank everybody that was here and participated, asked questions and stuff. Hopefully you learned something, took something out of this. I will be back next week, next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern for part 3. We've got to go through, we've only done 3 patterns, and we got 4 more to go. Some more exercises and different stuff like that. So again, thanks everybody that came and watched tonight. Appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week. Have a great week.